You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
It is 7:03. This is Commissioner Bassman. I want to call the special meeting of the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Agency to order. It is Thursday, October 29th, as I say, a little bit after 7 o'clock. We have a quorum of commissioners with us. We have Mr. Bennett as well as BCTV reporting this evening. And Abby is here to take minutes. And Abby, if you would also take a look and see if folk raise their hand on the Zoom process and let us know if somebody is looking to speak. We're here as a Zoom meeting as part of Executive Order 7B. I think right now it sounds like background noise is not an issue. If it does become an issue, please mute the microphones so that it's not distracting to others. There's a special meeting so that there's no changes to the agenda. We're going to do a roll call first. Commissioner Bassman is present. Commissioner Begeman?
Present.
Commissioner Rose?
Present.
Commissioner Sullivan? Commissioner Sullivan is not with us. Commissioner Boda?
Present.
I think that's all the commissioners we have with us this evening. Okay, we are here.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. Peter, can you just identify that you're also present?
I thought I did that in the beginning.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm here. We are here for the first item is a just cause hearing. And we are here via our regulations, which say if the agency or its designated agent finds that any person is conducting or maintaining any activity, facility, or condition which is in violation of the Act or these regulations, the agency or its duly authorized agent may issue a written cease and correct order by certified mail, return receipt requested to such person conducting such activity of maintaining such facility or condition to immediately cease such activity or to correct such facility or condition. Upon issuance of the order, the following applies. Item 1, within 10 calendar days of the issuance of such order, the agency shall hold a hearing to provide the person an opportunity to be heard and show cause why the order should not remain in effect. The agency shall consider the facts presented at the hearing and within 10 days of the completion of the hearing, notify the person by certified mail, return receipt requested that the original order remains in effect, that a revised order is in effect, or that the order has been withdrawn. So that's the reason we are here this evening. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Bennett at this point, unless Jamie, there's something that we need to consider before that.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. Have all the commissioners had a moment to look at the cease and correct order, or do you want to take a quick minute to look at that?
Why don't we take a quick minute to just put that up?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. The cease and correct order was sent out last Friday, as was discussed at the last meeting, regarding vegetation removal and earth disturbance within the upland review area. The orders required ceasing any additional earth disturbance and or vegetation removal and any activity that will impact stabilization of the site. Any further activity on the site shall not interfere with time frame for site stabilization or physical achievement of site stabilization, exceed footprint of the house, allow any vehicles to access the side and rear portions of the site that are to be stabilized with vegetation. All vehicles shall be located in stabilized areas off-site or within on-site parking areas on the street side of the house. And then they were told to correct, continue to stabilize the site as soon as possible by means of seeding all disturbed areas upslope of the silt fence no later than October 29th, 2020, which was completed. Utilize natural fiber erosion control blankets on seeded slopes installed by October 29th, 2020. That was also completed. Maintain silt fence on site. That has been no issues there. Monitoring site conditions and applying additional seed, hay, erosion control blanket as needed to ensure site stabilization. The areas that have previously been seeded are growing in pretty nicely. And that's just kind of an ongoing thing. A wetland investigation shall be completed by a soil scientist as soon as possible and the IW agent notified upon completion so that a site visit to review any on-site wetland flags may be conducted. If possible, have the wetland delineation prior to October 29th, 2020 so that images may be shared at the just cause hearing. Soils report shall be submitted by November 10th, 2020. The wetlands have been delineated. We have not received the report yet. They were just out there, I want to say Tuesday of this week. And the surveyor has already added those flags to an updated survey. And 3 is submit an updated survey by November 10th, 2020, depicting current site conditions to include wetlands on site as assessed per number 2 above, change in tree line location from location depicted on March 3rd, 2020 zoning location survey that was provided upon request, location of installed silt fence, location of disturbance, and current topographic information. And then 4 is dependent upon the information provided in items 2 and 3 above, the commission will assess whether any mitigation/additional corrective actions are required. And the rest of the order kind of goes into the process. And so that being said, does the commission want to move to looking at the revised survey and hand it over to Mike Bennett to present? I also have some pictures that were submitted by the property owner and various aerial images and photos from my inspection on Tuesday.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, why don't you put up the site plan that was part of the Dropbox, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Bennett. And then as he is having the discussion when it becomes timing-wise appropriate, then you can post the pictures.
Okay. Again, Mike Bennett, I'm a principal with Bennett and Smiles Associates, 415 Killingworth Road, Higginham, Connecticut. As you can see on the site plan, we were able to get the soil scientist out there on Tuesday. I think it was fortunate while he was there, Jamie stopped by to do an inspection. And I think that worked out well. He placed 3 flags across the backyard that indicate the limit of wetlands. And we are, awaiting a report. My conversations with him is that, obviously the area was disturbed and seeded. He thinks that there has probably been some historic seeding in that area. And basically, he thought that the disturbed wetland area could be restored with respect to plantings and possibly some removal of material along the wetland line. And you can also see in the picture, although it's gone, you can see where the shed was that was demolished in the back. It's in this area behind the house. That shed was moved as part of what seeded. We were able to locate the wetland flags and the silt fence to show you the amount of encroachment with current seeding. With respect to Jamie's request, or the request in the letter of cease and correct, we did not have time. My priority was to get the wetlands in the disturbed area located for this meeting. We did not have time to do a complete topographic survey and provide elevations throughout the site. But it is our plan to do that and provide updated topography for the November 10th meeting. And again, with respect to mitigation of the into the wetland area, I would ask for consideration of the commission to allow me to work with Robert Russo, the soil scientist, to come up with a mitigation plan and a planting plan with respect to that disturbed area. I also viewed numerous aerial photographs on the Yukon site that show historic photographs within, probably the last 30 years. And I definitely could see that there was grass down, from the house all the way back to the shed in that area. Unfortunately, the area, because of tree cover, there used to be a couple large trees on the top of the embankment that had fallen over and been removed. But because of the canopy of that tree, I could not see clearly make out any grass or vegetation below that canopy that would be, north and east of the shed. You could clearly see grass areas behind the house and going around the shed, very similar to where the silt fence is. And I think Bob indicated that, this, is a combination of historic disturbance of that wetland area and a, current disturbance of grading and reseeding it. Moving forward, I would like to, in addition to bringing back the topographic survey for November 10th, try to work out some mitigation plan with Mr. Russo.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess, are you optimistic that both the planting plan and the topographic information would be available prior to the November 10th meeting?
I think the meeting is actually on the 12th, if I believe that Jamie asked for the plan to be submitted by the 10th. With respect to the topographic survey, I am very confident that we can get that done and have the plan revised for that. I would have to speak to Mr. Russo to confirm that his schedule permits a time frame, permits him to get a planting plan completed by the 10th. My other option, if he's not available, I work closely with a landscape architect who's also assisted me in other towns with respect to providing planting plans for disturbed wetland areas. I would think that between the two of them, I should probably get something that I could present to the commission.
This is Commissioner Baskerville. Jamie, is it our intent or your intent that this work commence as soon as possible, or is there some reason to delay this?
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent, when you say this work, do you mean the actual planting, or do you mean
the planting, the plantings, and is there a need, if you will, for this season get this in quickly?
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent, I think the commission can kind of consider what their thoughts are on that. My thoughts would be it would probably depend in part what the planting plan consists of, given the time of year. It could be beneficial to have the work done sooner rather than later, just to ensure that it happens, but at the same time, it might be more beneficial to plant in the spring season. So, and the commission could ask for the mitigation plan to include the soil scientist's recommendation as to appropriate timing for that. And if the commission were to determine planting in the spring, then obviously the cease and correct order would remain in effect until such time that the mitigation plan had been complied with.
Okay. That was the essence of the question there. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Rose. Jamie, would circumstances that require the NOV, for lack of a better or for a shorter phrase, NOV staying in effect until the spring, would that somehow work against our interests on the project, on the property as a whole, or it'll get stabilized? Keeping the NOV in place is just a technicality, and things would pick up in the ordinary course in the spring.
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent. Yes, the cease and correct order currently, I don't think it would really impact the property owner's ability to progress with the project. It would remain open until the terms of the order have been complied with.
Thank you.
Yes, Mike Bennett again. I do think it's early enough in the season where if we could get permission to install the planning and do the restoration of this area, that we could assure that it will be stabilized and it's not too late to actually plant. I think the soil scientist would probably agree with that. I think the issue would really be if we were to present this plan with an opinion of the ability to get it done now and be sure that it's it takes proper hold and the shrubs and plantings are not going to be hurt through the winter season. I think my client will be ready to start immediately and do it to get this completed and behind him.
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent. Another note on that front is that the commission has in the past required inspections to ensure that the plantings do take. So, which would also leave the cease and correct order in effect. At this point, it's not been filed on the land records, so it's not really stopping any sort of action with the property. And the property owner has been obviously very responsive to our inquiries. So I guess the other question would be, would the commission want an inspection period? And if so, I would suggest that maybe the soil scientists provide a recommendation for what that inspection period should be.
Commissioner Bassett, yeah, the choice of plants obviously is important, and then include the inspection periods that we have, within our regulations. I think that's appropriate. I guess as we're here with the cease and correct, are there any changes to that cease and correct order as a result of the information that both Jamie as well as Mr. Bennett has discussed tonight that the commission needs to consider?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I would just probably point out that the cease and correct order identifies that the activity occurred in the upland area. Based on the survey, the activity has occurred also in wetland areas. I don't know if the commission wants to make that modification. And then also there's been discussion about a mitigation plan. It sounds like the property owner is willing to move forward with that, but does the commission want to codify that by modifying the cease and correct order and making it a requirement of the order?
So this is Commissioner Boda. I think for fair and uniform practice, as well as to dot our I's and T's, I think that both of those things would be beneficial to have in writing. Jamie, are you thinking that is this a general consensus issue, or is this a new motion that's adding to the existing language of the cease and correct?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I think the commission should make a motion as to whether they are going to uphold with modification, or sounds like you're doing. Trying to remember there. So I think it should be a motion.
Yeah. So since it's and I'm just speaking, and then this is not a formal motion yet, but just to get clarity on it, right? So then the motion would be to uphold the cease and correct, and to add to the cease and correct that the property owner needs to submit the mitigation planting plan, as well as confirm or clarify the appropriateness of planting this fall versus the spring. And the last piece was,
I think inspections. Jamie Frederick.
The inspections, and so we should figure out what we want to do in terms of time. But those are the three items. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So should we why don't we clarify right now, what do we want to do in terms of inspections, so that we can do that as a motion?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, maybe just to kind of wrap this all up, to also just specify mitigation planting plan in response to wetland impacts as
that was the other
depicted on the survey. And I can give you the date of the survey. October 28th, 2020 is the date of the survey.
The 28th?
Correct.
Okay, so affirming the mitigation plan for upland and the inland wetland areas has been noted on the map, the new map with the October 28th date. I can't hold all of them in my head at the same time. Holy cow, I've still dropped one again because there was three. The affirmation, the mitigation, the clarification about the timing of the planting. I'm sorry, Peter, what?
Yeah, you hit it, the plantings. Mitigation, the plantings, and the inspection.
Inspections.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent, and also noting submission by November 10th for consideration at the November 12th meeting.
November 12th?
Yep.
So, Commissioner Boda, so then inspections, can we come to some decision on what we're looking for that?
Don't we, Commissioner Basket, don't we have a inspection and survival rate in our regulations?
We do. This is Commissioner Boda, that tends to be about permits. We could use the 85% survivability rate. And you know, that we could have, if they plant in the fall, then there's an inspection in the spring and then the following fall. And then I guess it's a question of like, how long is that going to go on? Is that 5 years, or if everything is surviving? I guess, are we thinking like an application or something different because it's a cease and correct?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Vasquez. The only reason I pulled the existing regulation language is instead of reinventing the wheel, and for the case of a cease and correct, I wouldn't know how to justify the cease and correct being different from an application.
Sure.
You know, at some point in the future, if we have enough experience to indicate that because of certain conditions, things would be different. But right now, I don't know that we have any standing to suggest something different.
This is Commissioner Rose, wouldn't the problem be solved by just requiring an application promptly be submitted and we review that?
So this is Commissioner Boda, and I think if we can, Jamie and Abby, I would like to create some space in the upcoming meeting as like just Commissioner education, reflection, whatever, on why in this instance the homeowner can put in an application, but this thing needs to be treated as a cease and correct, and why that is. We talked about it briefly, but I think there are sometimes these opportunities for us to like actually stop and talk not about a specific instance, but like an educational moment. And I think that there was also another one which came out of the property on Parish Farm Roads, Cherry Hill, and the catching of the, they're not having infiltration rates. And I think that those are a couple of things that if we can talk about as a commission, that's sort of beyond or outside of the scope of any particular application.
Commissioner Basserman, we did have, a representative from the deep down not that long ago, and the issue of an application versus a cease and correct was reviewed. The cease and correct has a kind of a life of its own and gets confused to the extent that we want to apply certain conditions of applications to a cease and correct. So I think Deep's recommendation is that the two don't meet, right, and we treat them independently.
Right. And so the reason why I bring it up is that I think that, when Deep came to our meeting, there was a lot shared and there was a lot of listening. And I think this is a nice opportunity. We can sort of remove it from the context of this particular property, and just to give new commissioners some time to make sense of why it is in this instance where an application seems like the most sensible way to deal with this, it's not an appropriate solution. So I think that would be an important piece to have the full commission just wrap their brains around.
So in the one of the elements here, this is Mr. Bassman, what are the elements here of inspections? Do we therefore want to go forward with the 85% rule? And I guess a 5-year time frame.
Yeah. I found it. Okay, so I can do this motion with respect to modeling after section 7.10, and then just specify for the end of the first growing season, toward the end of the growing season, for a period of at least 5 years from initial planting. Does that seem to fit the bill?
Makes sense to me.
Okay. This Commissioner vote, is there anything else? Because I'm gonna make this motion. There's always, you can add after it's been seconded, but I think we're okay, right?
Commissioner Bassman, Commissioner Boda, would you include the language in 710B?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
That is my plan.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jamie, will you pull up the number of the cease and correct order, or just tell it to me?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. It is CC number 20.10.01.
20.10.01.
Yep.
67. No. Is that right? 67 Chestnut?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. It's 69 Chestnut Street.
Thank you. Okay. I'd like to make a motion.
Before you start, Commissioner Boda. Oh, I'm sorry. The investments is at 67. Thank you.
So this is Commissioner Boda. I would like to make a motion that we affirm the cease and correct number 20.10.01, 69 Chestnut Street, and that the cease and correct be clarified to include the requirement that a mitigation plan for the upland review area, well as the inland wetland areas that have been impacted as noted on the map from October 28th, that with that plan include clarification about the timing of the plantings and the appropriateness of planting in the fall of this year rather than the spring of next year. That inspections of the plantings completed at the end, upon completion of the planting, toward the end of the first growing season and toward the end of the growing season for a period of at least 5 years from the initial plantings, and that the reports must be submitted by a qualified ecologist or wetland specialist or a duly authorized agent as approved by the agency, and must document an 85% or better survival rate of planted of the drops off, sorry, of the plantings. And that is per our section 7.10 of the our town regulations.
And that they submit it by November 12th.
And that plan is to be submitted by November, for the November 12th meeting. Somebody has to second it, or it will die.
Well, I would be proud to second that. It was remarkable.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Can I just ask for clarification? Was that mitigation plan for the upland and wetland area or just the wetland area?
Yes, it was for both. Right, that was for the upland area as well as the inland wetland areas that were noted on the October 28th maps. Was that not right?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, that's up to the commission to decide. I just wanted to make sure that that was correct. And I don't want to have too much discussion as a staff member while there's a motion on the table.
I wanted to make sure that I understood all of the conversation that had happened, which led up to that. So I was trying to summarize the conversation, and if I misconstrued something, then I would rather fix it in the motion. And now's the only time to do that.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I think including both areas makes it all inclusive to the extent that we review that at the November 12th meeting and decide otherwise. That's fine. But I think for purposes of pulling together a plan, all inclusive seems to fit the bill.
Okay, so then just the vote.
So we take a roll call vote. Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Boda?
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Rose?
Mr. Rose, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Motion carried.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I believe Commissioner Sullivan has joined us.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Sullivan, aye.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
How do I see that?
Is that it? Can I make another motion right now? 7:40?
Say again?
Can I make another? Are we good? Can I make another motion right now at 7:40?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. There's one more item on the agenda.
Ouch.
Ooh. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Okay, item 2 on our agenda that we're moving quickly to is the administrative discussion regarding our regulation revisions. And I say at this point in time, we need to decide how we wish to proceed in reviewing these regulations, what the process is going to be. I guess between the last discussion on this item and today, staff, Jamie has had a conversation with town council just to make sure that we understand the rules of the road of what our options are in this area. And Jamie, why don't you inform the commission about your discussion with Bill and as to it as the option we have.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So at the last meeting, the commission was discussing possibly creating a subcommittee to discuss the fee regulation revisions that the commission may want to consider. And I requested delaying that formation until I could confirm what the process was, because I'm not terribly familiar or I wasn't terribly familiar with that off the top of my head. So I have confirmed that if the commission were to make a committee, it would, whether it's a quorum of commissioners or less than a quorum of commissioners, it will need to be noticed and held in like the same format that a full commission meeting would be. So it would have an agenda, it would be open to the public, it would have minutes. The minutes would be shared with the full commission as they're prepared. It would be the committee that would vote on the approval of the minutes. So the commission can go forward either way. I think it might be beneficial to see how many people are interested in being a part of that discussion. If it's more than a quorum, then might not be worth creating a subcommittee. If it's less than a quorum, then it might be worth it. So that way, that smaller group of people can have a discussion without needing to worry about getting 4 people together.
Is Commissioner Basserman. Yeah, so the way I look at it, the subcommittee may be a way to move forward with impacting as few members of the commission as possible, yet needing a decent number, but impacting the fewer number of commissioners in terms of time and effort. I know that schedules are busy and things like that. At the same time, I'm not certainly wedded one way or the other to whether a subcommittee is the way to proceed here or not. So I think, as Jamie points out, it all boils down to how many folk want to spend time kind of reviewing this and how much effort. I for one, would certainly participate in the discussion of regulation.
Commissioner Rose, I too would like to participate. This is kind of just a random thought. One of the reasons I was in favor of the idea of a committee was hoping that a smaller group could actually sit in a room and we could talk and exchange ideas as efficiently as people can do when they're sitting in the same place. The Zoom process, in and of itself, I think, just draws things out painfully. So that's just, as I said, a random thought.
Commissioner Rosberg, that may not be as random as you think. Jamie, is there any reason why, well, let me ask you this. If we were to decide that it would mask inappropriate distancing, that we would be more effective, more efficient if we were to meet in person, is there any town rule that would not allow us to do that?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. There is not a town rule that would not allow the commission to do that, either from a committee or a full commission standpoint. I would certainly have a couple of other questions to ask before moving forward. However, as long as we can find a meeting room, because I know I believe currently the community center is not open for meetings that are open to the public. So possibly we could do the fire station. I need to find a location that would let us do it. And if we were to have an in-person meeting, the executive orders require that the public can attend the meeting in person. You can't restrict them to attending through remote access. And then also, if you do have an in-person meeting, I'm not fully up on it, but I believe you have to accommodate access for commissioners to attend remotely if they do not want to attend in person, and they've requested such accommodation. And then I believe you have to accept requests or listen to requests from the public, but you don't necessarily have to accommodate a remote option for members of the public. Although I think it would be wise to try and do that if the commission wanted to move to an in-person meeting, although it certainly would be harder for us as staff to accommodate. So if the commission's interested in doing in person, either as a committee or the full commission, I would be interested in knowing that so that I can make the proper inquiries.
Mr. Bashman, again, I would like to continue to push that the idea of Commissioner Rose, because I do agree. I think we could the back and forth could bear some fruit that is difficult to do in a virtual context. And on discussion of regulations, especially fees, I think the back and forth is going to be important for us to put together a good product. And I think we could establish some rules to the extent the public wishes to participate, under which, when they participate and, depending on the numbers, and there may not be a lot of numbers, but depending on the numbers, set some rules so that everybody understands right from the get-go how we're going to process.
This is Commissioner Begeman. I'm not interested in being part of that subcommittee, but as a healthcare person, I'm just I'm not sure if I were interested in the committee. Not sure about meeting in a room and having public there and meeting for a couple of hours in a closed space, even how big a space is. Probably if you started off doing that, after a while you would. I'm guessing you would go back to remote just because of what's happening with the COVID numbers. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. That doesn't sound like we have enough with the subcommittee to make that process worthwhile.
Two is, you've got two.
Yeah.
Seems like enough.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. The commission's not ready to make a decision tonight. We can put it on the agenda for November or hold off and do it in December.
This is Commissioner Rose. It really, I meant it. It was a random thought. I certainly am not going to press the issue. I think the subcommittee idea is a good one because it just might reduce the numbers enough that even if we are doing by Zoom, it would be more efficient just because of the lesser numbers. And I think, this is the world we live in, and Zoom is the way that's most appropriate, and so be it. Let's just keep pushing.
Well, and this is Commissioner Boda, and I think that by doing a subcommittee, even though you're scheduling a meeting, there's not going to be these other little random items that get tossed onto the agenda. And so I think in addition to kind of people separating and say, yeah, this is something I'm interested in, it also prevents those just this other thing that we're adding, which can cause a meeting to go from, 40 minutes to an hour.
This is Commissioner Vassar, but again, staying with the random thought idea, Jamie, are we within our appropriateness here or on solid ground? If we were to send to the other members of the commission that are not on the call this evening a short email saying we discussed a subcommittee, and there are two members of the commission that have volunteered for a subcommittee, and to the extent that there's interest on the other commissioners to serve on a subcommittee, to contact staff, etc. Is that an appropriate vehicle, or can we not do that outside of the context of the meeting?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. I don't know about that.
I would think as the chair, you could. Just in an inquiry, not conducting formal business, but hey, let us know if you want to join this because you weren't at the meeting.
Yeah, my concern is I don't want to wait until November 12th to restart this whole thing. I'd like to at least know at that point in time whether there's an interest in proceeding.
Jamie.
Sorry.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. I think if you were interested in creating the subcommittee and if you were okay with it only being 2 members, you could certainly move forward in that direction tonight. And then, so I think the proper process would be to make a motion to form the committee, define what the committee's purpose is, which, if I'm understanding correctly, it'd be to review the fees and report back to the commission with a recommendation on potential changes to the fee section of the regulations. And then after that, it would be a process of selecting the members. And you could select members now, and then you could select additional members that are not present pending the appropriateness of doing so.
What is it, Commissioner Bassett? What does that mean, the appropriateness of doing it?
Confirming that that's okay to do before actually doing it.
Okay. That's what I thought you meant. I just wanted to.
Which is why Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, why I think you should only do that if you're okay with it being just the two that have expressed interest. Because I don't know if it's appropriate to add committee members after the fact.
Well, says Commissioner Boda, I guess, is there something that specifies exactly how these committees should be formed? Because if there's not something that says you shall do it this way, then as long as there's this kind of public forum and the meeting is noticed, then I don't understand under what rule, statute, regulation anyone would be within their right to say it is not the proper protocol and you have violated what? Nothing. So yeah, it would make sense to say there's a committee forming. These are the current members. If you determine your time and meeting, and then it'll go in the minutes anyway. And if there's someone who was not at the meeting and wanted to join, to let Jamie know, and then they would become part of that meeting or that subcommittee.
This is Commissioner Rose. Just to add to that, I think what you might want to do in tonight's meeting is to the chairman constitute the committee as a subcommittee created by the commission, made up of the two volunteers tonight, and that no meeting would take place until following the next regular Wetland Commission meeting, at which time any additional members that volunteer would be added to the commission at the next meeting. And once that next meeting occurs and the final roster of the subcommittee is established, at that point, future meetings can be scheduled by the subcommittee.
Commissioner Bassett, sounds reasonable. Any commissioner on the call this evening have issue with Commissioner Rose's platform here? And Jamie, you're suggesting a formal motion?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, yes. Alternatively, you could wait and make the motion at the next meeting, so that way you could have it all at once. But if you want to do it tonight, so it's done.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it tonight. I guess, as Commissioner Bassman, the motion is that on today, October
29th,
that the Inland Wetland Commission of Branford establish a subcommittee whose sole purpose would be the review of the regulations regarding fees, that the commissioners that have volunteered for that subcommittee, including Commissioner Basserman and Commissioner Rose, would be members of that committee, that other committee members so interested would be identified and added at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the commission, November 12th, 2020, that no subcommittee meeting would be conducted until after the November 12th meeting. And that's the motion.
A second. This is Commissioner Boda.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I would suggest modifying it to include the fact that the commission will provide a report on findings and proposed modifications to the full commission.
Commissioner Bassman, excellent addition. Maybe we should add this too, that the meetings of that subcommittee they may include in-person meetings if it is established that such in-person meetings are appropriate.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, I don't think it's necessary, but if you want to, you can put that in there.
Yeah, I'd like to put that in there.
I also accept the friendly amendments.
Any further discussion? We take a vote. Commissioner Begeman,
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Rose,
Commissioner Rose, aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Commissioner Sullivan, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay. I guess now might be that time for that additional motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
And there's
Commissioner Begeman, second.
okay, great. All in favor, aye.
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 Yes, folks. Good night.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.